looking at cybersecurity historically, I'm compelled to talk about the evolution of the threat spectrum and why it's so urgent now that people be aware and study this field. When we started experiencing mischief online, we were looking at young kids who'd stay up all night hacking into, say, the grading system at their high school and changing grades. It was a bit like vandalism. I can remember having downloaded a Word document and it had a macro virus attached, and it unleashed a wrecking ball on my desktop, and it would go back and forth and eliminate everything on my desktop that I'd have to replace later on. Now, I yearn for the good old days because we very quickly saw that organized crime began to find access to the internet and begin to squeeze out mischief makers to replace it with some serious efforts to compromise people's finances, steal money, extort folks. I can recall one of the experiences that we had here in the Seattle area with a couple of Russian hackers that had compromised an internet provider here in our area and had used access to that provider to leverage other assets on the internet and create false auctions on what was then eBay. And actually this was like creating a slot machine on steroids because they were able to automate the entire auction from beginning to end, including payments from credit cards that they had stolen. And this would result in money being funneled to their accounts. And in the space of about 9 months, they were able to take anywhere from $9 to $10 million. And it was estimated it might be upwards of that significantly from the financial institutions that were compromised in this complex attack. So criminals began to understand that it was a lot easier to rob banks online than it was to go through the front door of a bank with a gun and risk life and limb. And the crimes got increasingly more sophisticated, and we saw increasingly nefarious kinds of activity online. And we began to see terrorism and nation states begin to get engaged in activity online that would feed their national objectives. This took place over a period of about a decade, and as I said, gradually squeezed the mischief out of our concern, and we began to focus on the criminal element and the nation-state activity that was a problem. Now, all of these actors have different faces. The young kid that is hacking into a system, the criminal, a nation-state adversary, use similar approaches. They will do reconnaissance at the beginning of an attack, find an avenue to enter a system, stay low and slow, and find a way to dig in, and then begin to navigate around the system and systems that are connected to it in order to find what they're looking for, and then gradually exfiltrate what they're looking for and stay over a long period of time if necessary. Recent data breach reports indicate that the average data breach is not discovered in an organization for over 200 days, almost the better part of a year. So adversaries today have been able to disguise themselves and go unnoticed and steal, take intellectual property, gather data at will. And so this process is pretty much the same no matter who the adversary. It's a matter of how do we operationalize cybersecurity within our organizations to detect this activity and defend against it.